Hello world, how's it going? Welcome back to the Legacy YouTube channel, the planetary headquarters for all of your celestial information. Today we are doing another episode of the Forbidden Scrolls, and we are continuing on with the Urantia book, paper 56, Universal Unity. This is part 2, and I highly recommend going to go check out part 1 because it's a really deep and complex subject, paper, topic, and we're picking up right in the center of it. If you really want to be able to understand and comprehend what we're talking about, not trying to be condescending, like I said, I highly recommend to go see part 1. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. All of our social medias will be in the description, and let's jump into it. Part 7, paper 56, the Urantia book. Universal Evolutionary Repercussions. The steady progress of evolution in the time-space universes is accompanied by ever-enlarging revelations of deity to all intelligent creatures. The attainment of the height of evolutionary progress on a world, in a system, constellation, universe, superuniverse, or in the grand universe signalizes corresponding enlargements of deity function to and in these progressive units of creation. And every such local enhancement of divinity realization is accompanied by certain well-defined repercussions of enlarged deity manifestation to all other sectors of creation. Damn. Extending outward from paradise, each new domain of realized and attained evolution constitutes a new and enlarged revelation of experiential deity to the universe of universes. That's pretty wild. So as we evolve, we reveal new deity to different sectors of the cosmos. It's pretty gnarly. It's a real-time revelation as we experience. That's interesting.
We're on the forefront.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. As the components of a local universe are progressively settled in light and life, God the Sevenfold is increasingly made manifest. Time-space evolution begins on a planet with the first expression of God the Sevenfold, the Creator-Son Creative Spirit Association in control. With the settling of a system in light, this Sun Spirit liaison attains the fullness of function. And when an entire constellation is thus settled, the second phase of God the Sevenfold becomes more active throughout such a realm. The completed administrative evolution of a local universe is attended by new and more direct administrations of the super-universe master spirits. And at this point, there also begins that ever-expanding revelation and realization of God the Supreme, which culminates in the Ascender's... I lost my spot. Let's scroll down. Oops. Which culminates in the Ascender's comprehension of the Supreme Being, while passing through the worlds of the Sixth Havona Circuit. The Universal Father, the Eternal Son, and the Infinite Spirit are existential deity manifestations to intelligent creatures and are not, therefore, similarly expanded in personality relations with the mind and spirit creatures of all creation. That's an interesting thing to read. Universal Father. All right, whatever.
I'm trying to comprehend that paragraph.
Yeah, me too. That's gnarly.
What is that saying?
Are they saying they're so infinite and existential that their personalities, I don't know, they don't expand in relations with the mind? Oh, okay. So they don't grow. They don't grow when they interact with us because they're existential.
Yeah, I think that's what it's saying. It's like they are existential, so they can't. They're not expanded in our personality relations. I think it's saying that's what like God the Sevenfold and all those other like trickle down deity is for.
So they're not expanded by it because they already have all infinite combinations. We're just experiencing those infinite combinations within our space creation.
Okay, so they're not necessarily affected. They may influence us, but they aren't affected by our evolution. That's what the second Trinity is for, like God the Supreme and all that.
Okay, yeah, because they're talking about the first Trinity, the Universal Father, the Eternal Son, the Infinite Spirit. Yeah.
Okay.
So it just doesn't grow because fucking balls.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took me a second to comprehend that paragraph. I was like, what is it saying? I'm glad we were able to access that concept frame. Download that data in the Cosmos holographic image download now. And if you're listening to this, I'm glad you could be part with us. So, moving on. It should be noted that ascending mortals may experience the impersonal presence of successive levels of deity long before they become sufficiently spiritual and adequately educated to attain experiential personal recognition of and contact with these deities as personal beings. Well, that's cool. So we can experience them impersonally, even way before we're able to be conscious of what we're experiencing. That's wild. That's cool. So you don't have to be sufficiently spiritual or adequately educated in order to still.
Yeah. It's sort of like a lot of people say, they had a contact with God.
They feel God.
You
Can
may
you
not
feel the
be able
presence?
to, you may not be able to articulate what aspect of God you actually experienced. All you know is,
Oh, so like when you're tripping on shrooms, that makes sense.
yeah, something like that.
You know you feel it, but you
something.
can't explain it.
You felt something you don't usually feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Each new evolutionary attainment within a sector of creation, as well as every new invasion of space by divinity manifestations, is attended by simultaneous expansions of deity functional revelation within the then existing and previously organized units of all creation. Well, that's cool. This new invasion of the administrative work of the universes and their component units may not always appear to be executed exactly in accordance with the technique herewith outlined, because it is the practice to send forth advanced groups of administrators to prepare the way for subsequent and successive eras of new administrative overcontrol. Wow. What the fuck, dude? This is like a cosmic manual right here. This is insane. It's telling you exactly how they invade new areas of space with administrative personalities. That's wild.
Laying down the groundwork on fertile soil.
Exactly. That's crazy. And it says they apparently have their own autonomy because it doesn't go exactly with the technique here with outline, because we send new people into new sectors and they do it how they need to get it done. That's pretty cool. I realized God gives you a lot of leeway when you do a mission, like Tally asked to, like, here's a planet, do with it what you will. It's like, damn, really? All right. They give you a lot of like they're not sticklers. They kind of sit back and give you enough rope to hang yourself. They want to see how you're going to act.
With God's will, all He asks is that you're just going to kind of serve others, serve the greater good, build yourself up in the process. So it's like, you want one job. It's not that hard not to be that selfish.
Just don't manipulate other people. Just don't. Oh. All right. Even God, the ultimate, foreshadows his transcendental overcontrol of the universes, during the later stages of a local universe settled in light and life. It is a fact that as the creations of time and space are progressively settled in evolutionary status, there is observed a new and fuller functioning of God the Supreme, concomitant with the corresponding withdrawing of the first three manifestations of God the Sevenfold. If and when the grand universe becomes settled in light and life, what then will be the future function of the creative manifestations of God the Sevenfold if God the Supreme assumes direct control of these creations of time and space? Wow, that's a good question. Are these organizers and pioneers of the time-space universes to be liberated for similar activities in outer space? We do not know, but we speculate much concerning these and related manners. So again, if you haven't listened to part 1, please go listen to part 1, because we talk about this concept extensively, as in the universe is like for lack of better terms, a big video game, and different levels can be unlocked based on our cooperation with each other. Right now, let's say there's like a level wall on the very outside of the entire universe, a big wall for the next level that we have to unlock. But we can only unlock this level together. Once everybody is working together, perfect, trying to help each other grow in the mind, body, and spirit. I'm not talking to everybody on this planet. I'm talking all planets in the cosmos. Once we get to that point, it'll be considered settled in light and life. Once that happens, the next level of the game unlocks, the outer universe opens up, and there's going to be an entirely new cosmos that we have to deal with. Beings out there that are at the low level and have to ascend back in towards the Father, like we're doing currently. This is posing the question: if the manifestation of God the Sevenfold are currently in charge of this program, but we're working to create God the Supreme, in the far off future. Once we manifest God the Supreme, supposedly he'll take control over the current universe. So what does that do? To say, will they be liberated? Will they be released from these duties? And will they be used for other aspects in cosmic organization and administration? Because now the Supreme is in charge of this, and now those God the Sevenfold can snap into a different functional mode. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and what we're kind of getting towards, I from what I understand, the Supreme Being, God the Supreme, is the evolutionary God that gains kind of sovereignty through each of our individual experience, and that makes sense to me. God the Ultimate, on the other hand, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what exactly is God the Ultimate. I understand it's like God the Supreme, but on another phase, it's like the Absonite version or something like that. And then they come together, and there's a third member of the second Trinity. I know that's what we're getting towards. We'll definitely have to do a deep dive into some of these concepts a little more to wrap our mind around it. But that's my basic understanding, is there's a second Trinity that ends up forming kind of a new experiential Trinity, and that is what ends up like spearheading the development after this like era is complete.
All right, don't break people's minds too quickly.
I want to throw in my my concept here, because I'm thinking of like how when founders and CEOs grow their business, eventually when they want to step out and sell it, or if they just want to free up their time, they have to delegate their tasks. Yeah. And at some point, they become so ensconced in the top level affairs that maybe they don't actually enjoy doing that stuff as much. And so they go, okay, I want to hire a top level manager who can actually manage this, so I can actually do things I enjoy more, or totally sell the business. So when I'm thinking about this, when they're speculating like when God the Supreme is manifested, maybe he can actually uphold the universe, and which would free up God the Sevenfold to potentially participate more in the right now. God the Father, participates in the form of the thought adjusters, which is like a small way that he can sort of get in there or get past the fetters of infinity, is what they call it. So yeah, who knows? Maybe God as the CEO, he's trying to get in here in new forms of participation. Maybe God the Father. Maybe, I guess they're just talking about God the Sevenfold, but we're going to get possibly new personalizations and participations from the deity levels once the universe is passed on to the Supreme, and be like, okay, I need you to uphold all the physical laws and the energy manifestations. Like, you take care of that, and so I can do this.
Yeah. And we have to remember that. Yeah, we have to remember that these aren't just like abstract forces we're talking about. There's like chains of command. There's like beings. There are beings that are supposedly father beings, like Ancient of Days. You know what I'm saying? And then there's spirit beings such as like the seraphim that come from the different source in the center. Their origin and nature tends to lean more towards one of the parts of the Trinity. And that's what it's referring to when it says, are these organizers and pioneers of the time-space universes to be liberated for similar activities in outer space? So maybe all those personalities will, because they don't have to work on the ascension scheme anymore, maybe it'll be part of the finaliter mission. Maybe we'll be in charge of the ascension scheme in the material universes. Nobody really knows. But maybe these seraphim and all these personalities will be dispatched into the outer universes, because they also represent God the Sevenfold. If you read the Urantia, it classifies all these beings. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I guess I'd like to say that the whole point of this, if you would wonder, like, well, what's the point of speculating about something that happens in the remote future? It's literally just to show that it is opened up towards progress and development, so that there's a reason for us to keep growing, for our planet to keep developing, for us to keep doing what we're doing. So, when we get to heaven, we're not just sitting there stagnating for thousands of years. There is a reason for constant growth.
Yeah, and what's the purpose of knowing reality? I mean, that's the purpose in itself. You're supposed to want to understand reality. We're here to figure out the highest concepts we can possibly reach and grasp while alive in the cosmos. So to say, why would I think about that? That's a disgusting thought. You're just limiting yourself. Why are you doing that? It's like saying, I don't want that $100 on the ground. Like what? I know it's a stupid analogy, but why would you say that? That's just fucking dumb. Yes, you should want to know. Just because you're too lazy to figure out doesn't mean you should convince others to be lazy as well. Stop saying that shit. Figure it out. You know?
Amen.
Yeah.
So plowing ahead, talking to you people, listeners.
Know thyself.
Yes. Amen.
Yes.
As the frontiers of experiential deity are extended out into the domains of the unqualified absolute, we envision the activity of God the sevenfold during the earlier evolutionary epochs of these creations of the future. Wow. We are not all in agreement respecting the future status of the Ancient of Days and the super universe master spirits. Neither do we know whether or not the supreme being will therein function as in the seven super universes, but we all conjecture that the Michaels, the creator's sons, are destined to function in these outer universes. Oh, interesting. Some hold that the future ages will witness some closer form of union between the associated creator sons and divine ministers. It is even possible that such a creator union might eventuate in some new expression of associate creator identity of an ultimate nature. Wow. But we really know nothing about these possibilities of the unrevealed future. I love it how even these high beings are speculating.
Yeah.
They don't even understand, but they're kind of like, we think it's like this.
Sort of breaks the fourth wall of like the reader narrator relationship, especially because people are used to reading religious text like in this old style of writing. Yeah, an absolute, like the Old Testament, like dictation, like as if it's the word of, as if God is speaking to you. But in this case, this is like interesting that we're actually in this big classroom and you can read all the authors and you can read about their origins and how they play into the universe. And so these that you're reading it and then sometimes they break the fourth wall and just remind you like, yeah, we're actually part of this process. We're not sure. Some of this is speculation, but you know, I love it when they're like, the Melchizedek cosmic philosophers think this about the universe, but truly it's hard to know for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's a breath of fresh air, you know.
It is.
It is. Well, what's interesting about that is there was somewhere in here where it was talking about like different groups of angels kind of disputing what paper to include and whether one paper was appropriate to include or not. Then I noticed too, because each paper is by a different being, there are like one or two papers that almost describe human beings almost as like lab rats or something like that, or like germs in a petri dish. It's a little more of a cold kind of take, and I'm like, man, like this is very different from the way like some of the angels were describing it. I'm like, oh, it was like Len and Andek that wrote this paper. So it, like, depending on the being, it kind of explains why some of the I guess some of the perspectives are different depending on who's writing it, I guess.
Yeah. Good to keep in the back of your mind too. Yeah. Them cold papers are chilling. Not really. But, you know, they've never been human before, so they don't really know what it's like.
Never been human before. Yeah.
You know. All right.
The Buddha says to be human is a blessing.
Yeah. I mean, dude, hell yeah. This garment that I'm qualifying in right now, shit, I'm pretty sure it's one of the gnarliest, tightest garments out there, dog. So I'm fucking stoked. You know?
Got that flesh swag.
Straight up. Check this out. Earth, fool. And I was in there when the shit was going down. I'll be like, what? The hardest stripes on your fucking uniform.
Yeah.
All right. Keep going. We do know, however, did I read that? Yeah, no, right here.
Yeah.
We're still conjecturing, still cosmic philosophy and debate. We do know, however, that in the universes of time and space, God the Sevenfold provides a progressive approach to the Universal Father, and that this evolutionary approach is experientially unified in God the Supreme. We might conjecture that such a plan must prevail in the outer universes. On the other hand, the new order of beings that may sometimes inhabit these universes may be able to approach deity on ultimate levels and by absinthe techniques. In short, we have not the slightest concept of what technique of deity approach may become operative in the future universes of outer space. It's a beautiful way to say it. We really don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, we deem that the perfected superuniverses will in some way become a part of the paradise ascension careers of those beings who may inhabit these outer creations. It is quite possible that in the future age, we may witness outer spacers approaching Habona through the seven superuniverses administrated by God the Supreme, with or without the collaboration of the seven master spirits.
Whew.
Yeah, it's gnarly shit. They're talking about the cosmos in like a high way.
For sure.
Like complex universal architecture.
I think it's special that it's so what's the word I'm looking for? Undestined. There's a lot of unknown about it. I think one of the highest truths of this life is free will and us being able to pave our own way. And it seems like that is relevant to also higher beings, like that, that predetermination isn't even a thing for higher beings. I think freedom is like one of the highest truths, if not the highest truth that was granted to us from God.
Amen to that.
Okay. Free will. It's the evolutionary manifestation of the cosmos, the supreme being. It's fucking tight. No, what do you use your free will to do? To line up with the Father or to distort the cosmos?
Yeah. So one of the greatest trips is this kind of a paradox. If the future and the past and the present and everything is known, if it is all contained within a holographic universe, it can all be accessed, at least on the highest level. Yet our future isn't set in stone. We're still, time is like a flow of water that branches off, and we choose which tributary to or stream to kind of flow down. Like, how much more infinite is the cosmos from God's perspective? It's interesting. It's like life and the course of history is like almost like a lightning bolt surging through this all-pervasive atmosphere of time and space altogether. And I don't know, it's a trip. It's a trip to think about how is all of it contained within infinity, and it's all predetermined in a way, like the beginning and the end are the same point, yet it's still meaningful. Like, your actions still determine the course of history. You still have an influence, kind of steering the direction. And that's something we'll keep getting deeper into.
Yeah, the mechanics of the universe is really interesting to try to figure out. It's like a military operation. These guys bring the ammo, these guys load this, these guys bring the empty casings back, these guys bring the food, and you need all of that in order to make the operation work. I want to know the same thing about the universe. I want to know who does what does what, where it goes to what goes to where. Can I go this way? Can I go that way? It's interesting. It's really cool that he allowed this arena to exist so that this drama of time space can occur. It's fucking amazing. Space opera.
Space opera.
Right. This is space opera.
All right. Who wants to read next?
I can take over.
Yeah, this one's gnarly, dude.
I'd also like to say on your note, it seems like as we figure out how the universe works in some way, it changes how the universe works. It becomes quantum. It's like the observer effect. As you observe more of it, there is more to observe, and it just keeps going, infinitely creating. Something special about that as well.
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird that's how it works. Yeah, the more you observe and the more you externalize, just by externalizing, creating, that is fulfilling a necessity in the cosmos.
Yeah.
So it forces it to go into a new function because you fulfilled the need just by experiencing it. So experiencing itself forces the cosmos to unlock another function. It's forever. It's fucking trippy, dude.
It's trippy.
So if I could relate to a programming concept, it's kind of like a recursive function that calls on itself. That's actually, it's used in computer programming, but it's actually it's what the Mandelbrot fractal is. It's a function that calls on itself, and it takes that result, plugs it back into the function. And as it keeps iterating, it's changing itself in the process. But something like the Mandelbrot, it's only plotted out because we decided to plotted out, and as you zoom into it and you zoom in, you keep discovering new regions of the fractal that can even be mapped out. There's like Seahorse Valley and Elephant Valley and all these labels people have given to these parts of the fractal. But it's like you said, it's like by observing it, you find more to observe.
Mm-hmm.
The observation is basically creating everything around
exactly. us. Yeah, we're fulfilling the data set just by experiencing, forcing another data set to appear.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. The Supreme Unifier. The Supreme Being has a threefold function in the experience of mortal man. First, he is the unifier of time, space, divinity, God the Sevenfold. Second, he is the maximum of deity, which finite creatures can actually comprehend. Third, he is mortal man's only avenue of approach to the transcendental experience of consorting with absentite mind, eternal spirit, and paradise personality. Ascendant finaliters have been born in the local universes, nurtured in the super universes, and trained in the central universe, embrace in their personal experiences the full potential of the comprehension of time-space divinity of God the Sevenfold unifying in the Supreme. Finaliters serve successfully in the super universes other than those of nativity, thereby superimposing experience upon experience until the fullness of the sevenfold diversity of possible creature experience has been encompassed. Through the ministry of the indwelling adjusters, the finaliters are enabled to find the universal Father. But it is by these techniques of experience that the finaliters come really to know the Supreme Being, and they are destined to the service and revelation of the Supreme Deity into the future universes of outer space.
Dude, that's crazy. My eyes are welling up right now.
Why?
Because I got the mental image of us like flying through this dark part of space for years. We're like, God, where's the Father? What the fuck? We can't find it. Where the fuck is it? We turn the corner and we see just like that primordial glowing light. Like, that's fucking him. Holy shit. There will be a moment when that happens, dog. Prepare yourself.
Oh, man.
To that, sorry to interject here, but like there are all these beings kind of laid out in the Urantia book, but not all of them get to meet the Father in that way. It takes literally us who start in the dirt, in the mud, working our way up in the most difficult, brutal, traumatizing way possible. We're the ones that are capable of finding God. There's this movie, what was it called? Like The Green Mile or something like that. It's like a long movie, and this guy, he had the ability to like experience all human suffering at once. And there was like some great burden, and he was just like tearing up. He's like, you could see what I see, he experienced all pain. And I think that's the mind of God. I think that's probably why our consciousness would be extinguished if we truly try to comprehend God and we're unprepared, because we can't handle the truth. You can't handle all of reality and everything that's happening unless you've been like thoroughly prepared and conditioned. He's got a big burden on his shoulders.
And just for people listening, finaliters is that term that they keep saying. That means a human being from a planet like us who has made the journey all the way through the cosmos, finished their ascendant program, and met the Father face to face. And when you meet the Father face to face, he will give you orders and redispatch you back into the cosmos for further work, organization, to help get the cosmos back onto the highest level that you can. So when they say finaliters, they're talking about literally evolutionary beings like humans who have made it to the Father and came back. And there are beings in our cosmos. We have finaliters. So we have people who have started as like a monkey-like being like us and have made it to the Father and come back. To think about that is insane. And that's what we're going to be able to do, is talking about that right here. Superimposing experience upon experience until the fullness of sevenfold diversity of possible creature experience has been encompassed. So that's what we're going to be doing, flying around the universe, superimposing experiences until you're just like, I get it. Mind explodes. It's gonna be tight.
Well said.
Bear in mind, all that God the Father and his paradise sons do for us, we in turn and in spirit have the opportunity to do for and in the emerging supreme being.
Oh.
The experience of love, joy, and service in the universe is mutual. God the Father does not need that his sons should return to him all that he bestows upon them, but they do, or may, in turn bestow all of this upon their fellows and upon the evolving supreme being.
Oh, that's wild, right? That's that philosophical concept right there is so beautiful, and it's like almost not finality of expression, but it's a lot higher than any concepts we have on Earth. We don't need to bring all of this, everything that God bestows on us. We don't need to bring it back to him. He doesn't need that shit, but we can bestow it upon our fellows. And by doing that, we do it for him. So that's like the most beautiful way to do it. If you want to act like God, stop being stingy. We're going to have to bestow everything to everybody else, just like the Father bestows to us. That's what Jesus said. Freely I have given to you, freely you have received, freely you shall give, right?
Yeah, it's truly a living cosmology. That's what I love about it. Like, it's there. A lot of people get in their head this almost broken idea of God, that God has put us here and kind of forgotten us about it. Like, forgotten about us. We've been forsaken, and we're just meant to basically sit here, suffer, get through it. Good, I made it. All right. But like, this presents a worldview that we are each directly responsible for helping to build this supreme being, this evolutionary aspect, this experiential aspect of God. And we only do that through our relationships with each other, through building greater together. So it adds a sense of agency and motivates you, gets you pumped up to actually do something.
I love that. Living cosmology. I like I said that. Oh yeah.
It's a living story, isn't that what they call the Bible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally. It's still being written.
That's right. It is. I love that.
All creational phenomena are reflective of the antecedent creator spirit activities. Said Jesus, and it is literally true, the Son does only those things which he sees the Father do. In time, you mortals may begin the revelation of the Supreme to your fellows, and increasingly may you augment this revelation as you ascend paradiseward. In eternity, you may be permitted to make increasing revelations of this God of evolutionary creatures on supreme levels, even ultimate, as seventh stage finaliters.
Damn, seventh stage finaliters, dog. That's crazy, dude. That really just put these crazy mental pictures in my head. Like, in a perfect ideal society, could you imagine if everybody knew what we're talking about now, so they can conceptualize what we're talking about, and then realize that every time they look into another person's eyes, they're witnessing another facet of the Supreme. A revelation of the Supreme. I'm a revelation of the Supreme, just like you're a revelation of the Supreme. And now we can all get excited about that and buzz together and just be like, damn, we're all revelations of the Supreme. How can we max this out? Like, how can we max out this revelation of the Supreme through each other?
That's the culture we need to foster. I mean, that's why, people say namaste to each other. It's supposed to be, the God in me recognizes
the God in you. Yeah.
That should be common knowledge.
It should be common knowledge, but it's not. The paradigm now is this person's against me. This person looks different, sounds different, smells different. They're not me.
But a lot of the time, the people, they forfeit their trust. They do not act like a revelation of the Supreme. Therefore, it's hard to perceive them as one.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't see yourself as divine, how are you going to see someone else as divine?
But I'm saying, even if you see a shitty person, they're not going to look like a revelation of the Supreme when they're shitty to you. Then you're going to be like, oh, it's hard to remember that they're a revelation of the Supreme when they're acting like a fucking idiot.
You know what? I got something to say about that. Maybe this isn't always true. Maybe it is, but there have been characters in my life, like as I've been younger and I've had to work with these older guys who are just total assholes to me, who just gave me a hard time. But I was inexperienced at my work, and it always kind of shaped me for the better. And looking back on it, and reflecting, like at the time, I just felt like, oh, I hate this guy, he's such an asshole. But looking back on it, I'm like, he actually really taught me a lot. And maybe a lot of our interactions with others, as long as we don't kill each other right away, we learn a lot from our interactions with each other, even if it's negative. You know, it's like they say there's really no such thing as a bad trip, because every trip is an educational experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
be used as a lesson.
But it's people act shitty sometimes, and you can always learn from it. You can always learn from it, but it's
sometimes the lesson is I don't want to even associate myself with this person. That might be the lesson.
Yeah. And even then, so like, yeah, you can say you're learning from the Supreme, but it's hard to look at that person and be like, this is a revelation of the Supreme, or just a time-space accident distortion that I'm perceiving at the moment, you know?
You're a time-space accident.
Okay, who's going to keep going?
All right. Universal absolute unity. The unqualified absolute and the deity absolute are unified in the universal absolute. The absolutes are coordinated in the ultimate, conditioned in the supreme, and time-space modified in God the Seventh. On sub-infinite levels, there are 3 absolutes, but in infinity, they appear to be 1. On paradise, there are 3 personalizations of deity, but in the Trinity, they are 1. The major philosophic proposition of the Master Universe is this.
Oh my God, this is my favorite question. One of my favorite questions in the entire.
Did the absolute, the 3 absolutes as 1 in infinity, exist before the Trinity? And is the absolute ancestral to the Trinity? Or is the Trinity antecedent to the absolute? Is the unqualified absolute a forced presence independent of the Trinity? Does the presence of the deity absolute denote the unlimited function of the Trinity? And is the universal absolute the final function of the Trinity? Even a trinity of Trinity?
Yeah, you want to pause there for a second? I want to postulate that question for a bit with you guys. Like,
before they answer it for us.
Before they answer it for us. Like, a lot of people think of, the Trinity and the source. It's hard. Which one came first? But I thought it was 1. Is it 3? A lot of people's mind tends to think of like a big glowing energy ball source, aka the unqualified absolute. That's first, like the big static energy field of everything before God became a singularity. That's how people kind of conceptualize it. So at first it was an infinite energy field, and finally the Father appeared, and then the Trinity appeared at the same time, right? Like, that makes sense. That's how most people think about it. But we're also taught that the Trinity is absolute and nothing came before the Trinity. So if that's true, then what's true? What came first, the Trinity or the energy static field?
That's the trippy part about it, is that there was no chicken and the egg kind of thing. It's like literally they lay out in the first paper the sequential series of events of, like, first you have the Father. He differentiates himself, almost like cell division or something, and so that the created, like, version of himself basically becomes the Son because he was the Father to it. Then simultaneously there's a third presence automatically, that kind of the space in between, which becomes the third source and center, the conjoint actor. And it's interesting. It lays out from there this whole series of events, how it unfolds sequentially. But the revelators in the book warn us, like, we're just doing this for you to be able to wrap your mind around it. But it never really happened.
How it went down
in, like, step 1, step 2. It always has been. And really the best way for us to understand it in the modern day is by looking at something like the Mandelbrot fractal. It's not that the Mandelbrot is this perfect divine shape per se, but it is just the very concept that it can exist. And now, like, in the modern day, we have computers. We can actually look at it. We have an edge in understanding some of these concepts they were talking about in the 30s, but that something can exist in totality without there necessarily being a beginning or an end to it. It's true. It's kind of a paradox, but that's why reality exists, is to kind of solve this unsolvable paradox.
I always thought of it as like God as a painter and the absolute being the canvas. But in order to think you need a canvas, there has to be a painter that knows he wants to paint something. You could see the Trinity as like his brush and his paints.
There you go.
It's just a layman way to look at it. You know,
yeah,
you don't need an absolute
that's
energy field. You need a thought that I need an absolute energy field.
That's a good point. So that's why we need an unqualified absolute, because you need a canvas to paint something.
So I guess the opposite analogy is that there is something that always is, and it just is. Now, for anything to come out of what that energy is, there must be intelligence. So we can call it intelligent infinity is the absolute. It's not just, it's not non-self-organizing, but it is energy. The universe we don't start with a lack of anything, with nothing. We have some type of primal energy. You call it undifferentiated energy is what you could call the absolute, but it's also intelligent, and that's why you can get the personalities which manifest within it. So of course, before the motion of matter and time, it is a confusing question to say what came first, but there, in the oneness of God, there is some point where you can no longer make differentiations. And in the Urantia book, that point seems to be around this Trinity and Absolute. They make a differentiation for us between the Absolute and the Trinities. But beyond that, again, it seems like the writers of this paper can't seem to make a differentiation beyond that point. And I would say that's sort of inevitable in the paradox, although we'll understand it more as we ascend through the universes and actually interact with all the different beings and the creation. Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe the absolute is the energy aspect, and the Trinity is the intelligence and consciousness aspect. Now, both of those things existed at the same time, existentially, as the absolute, but when we observe them, all we see is the manifested differences.
The differentiation.
Yeah. That's the thing, I guess, is like by observing this world, we're observing the painting, the paint on the canvas. But that's the tricky part, is trying to visualize, like, what I guess, where did the paint come from and who's the painter?
Yeah, well, keep reading. It'll
the revelators
give us some insight.
What they have to say about this. I'll go ahead and reread that question just to kind of refresh our memories on this tangent we're going on. The major philosophic proposition of the Master Universe is that did the absolute, the three absolutes, as one in infinity, exist before the Trinity? And is the absolute ancestral to the Trinity? Or is the Trinity antecedent to the absolute? Is the unqualified absolute a force presence independent of the Trinity? Does the presence of the deity absolute connote the unlimited function Trinity? And is the universal absolute the final function of the Trinity, even a Trinity of Trinity? On first thought, a concept of the absolute as ancestor to all things, even the Trinity, seems to avoid transitory satisfaction of consistency, gratification, and philosophic unification. But any such conclusion is invalidated by the actuality of the eternity, Paradise Trinity. We are taught, and we believe, that the Universal Father and his Trinity associates are eternal in nature and existence. There is, then, but one consistent philosophic conclusion, and that is, the Absolute is, to all universe intelligences, the impersonal and coordinated reaction of the Trinity, of Trinities, to all basic and primary space situations, intra-universal and extra-universal, to all personality intelligences of the grand universe, Paradise Trinity forever stands in finality, eternity, supremacy, and ultimacy, and for the practical purposes of personal comprehension and creature realization as absolute.
There it is right there.
It's a trip how they've redefined some of these words. So now when you hear the word like ultimate or supreme, you know they're hinting at some greater definition. It's not just throwing the word in there willy-nilly. And I realize a lot of words in the Urantia book are like that. They're very deliberately used. And once you start to become familiar with some of the definitions, you see what they're hinting at with every single sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's interesting. This answers the question right there. Is the absolute ancestral to the Trinity, or is the Trinity ancestral to the absolute? And they say the Trinity came first. The Trinity always was and never was. So that static energy field of pure energy we conceive of in our head, it actually comes after the Trinity. Which doesn't really make sense, but I guess
it doesn't really make sense. But I mean, that's what they say.
That's what they're claiming. Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it too. It's just interesting because like everybody thinks the opposite, that the energy field came first and the Trinity came from the energy field. But
yeah,
now it's Trinity first.
Well, you gotta create your playground, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's a better way to put it. Like you said, like you need a canvas, right? Just the
right.
fact
You need to know what you need.
Yeah, so you need to know what you need. Amen.
So it's almost like all of this has been worked out in theory in this like abstract realm of mind before it was ever fleshed out in a material world, kind of. I don't know, because it's like as the sun, you know, at least from my primitive human understanding of it, like as a sun, I have a material body, you know. I have a form, and that's kind of the way I visualize the sun, you know, the second source and center is form that can actually like utilize the gift of personality from the first source and center. But and you know, the third source and center, the conjoined actor, kind of offers the playground for the forms to inhabit, and move around in, and exist in time and space separate from each other, so we're not all overlapping in some singularity. But like, how the hell is all that like actually present in the Trinity before there is actually any kind of absolute? That's a trip. But
the static energy field is second. Whatever. If you're listening, you're a listener. If you want to think correctly, static, pure, undifferentiated energy field comes second. The Trinity always was. I guess there was never a time when there wasn't the Trinity. It just triggered it. Yeah. So
all right. So as creature minds may view this problem, they are led to the final postulate that the universal I am, as the primal cause and the unqualified source of both the Trinity and the Absolute. Let me read that one more time.
Yeah, I know. They bring it even a step back farther.
As creature minds may view this problem, they are led to the final postulate of the universal I am as the primal cause and the unqualified source of both the Trinity and the Absolute. So that's all there is to it. I am. It's
I am.
In those two words right there.
I am that I am.
Existence, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's the simplest thing, but that is consciousness. I feel like physicists work so hard I feel like physicists work so hard to overcomplicate what is consciousness. Is it this interplay between electrochemical interactions between the neurons, and you know, it's not a mechanical thing. It's literally it is that. Like I think what this is saying is meaning comes first. The physical world and all that comes second, but literally it all started with the recognition of infinite intelligence that like, whoa, I am. And
it's existentialism from God's point of view. He exists. It exists, therefore I exist. I am, therefore I am. I am that I am. You know.
I am that I am.
Also, I guess for true like free will to exist, that sense of I am has to come before any material manifestation, because if we have material energy first, then
that'd be dominant.
Yeah, it would be dominant, and like whatever pattern that material energy was in, it would dominate your sense of I am or free will. And so that's where you get like the idea that we are just a product of material chemicals, and then you get into this thing where we can't have free will because it's just these predetermined reactions. But if you look at the universe as consciousness first, energy second, then you do get like that I am even before you're thinking. I think therefore I am is just a self-reflection technique. It's not even like the actual point of self-recognition. It's just like one reflection point that makes a lot of sense. But it's actually just like I am. It's not I think therefore I am. It's amness, isness. Okay, so in the statement I am, you actually do have the idea of self-awareness and energy. So am is referencing the word is. So something that is like energy. We can measure it against another thing. So what is it just is. It is or it isn't.
What is.
Yeah, what is like, so amness is a statement of like it's there. Yeah. And then I is a statement of personality, self-awareness. So and even in the phrase is wrong if you go am I. If you switch it and go am I, then you put the energy first and the personality second. And that's a question. But that you can't start with the question, you start with the statement. In the universe, you start with the statement, I am. Now us as mortals on the other side, we start with the opposite question. We start with am I? And we question it. Yep. And that's the tension of expression between the universe. So the universe truly starts with I am, but us at the far end of possibility and animal origin, we start with am I? And then we get back up to the I am and figure that out from personal experience through the evolutionary process.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. That's as you bring me back to, I think, the first, second, or third video on my YouTube channel, I talked about that. The concept of I am. And it's one of my favorite ways to explain it. Just like when I was young, I read a couple different Bibles. Some say I am that I am. Some say I am, therefore I am. There's a couple different ways that different versions of the Bible puts it. But when I was young, I always wondered what the fuck that meant. I was in church one time. I saw the Moses in the burning bush. I am that I am. Tell the nations I am, therefore I am. And I was like, what does that mean? I did not understand it. I thought these people were crazy around me. I wanted to fall asleep in church because I was tired. I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into deep in philosophy, and I realized, started understanding it. And I said, I am that I am. I am, therefore I am. And I realized it was God speaking to us. Like, he's the capital I am, and we're the lowercase I am. He's in all caps, I am. And we're like this little I am. We're a reflection of that I am. Like in the very beginning of the universe, he was, he is, he just exists. I am, just is. All those words, I forget what they are in grammar. They have like a certain word for it, like not a noun or a pronoun or a preposition. They have a word for it. But in Spanish, it's called ser, to be. Tú estás, yo estoy, like to exist, to be. These are all words about existence. Being, is, am, you are, all those words are just different facets of that same I am consciousness, to be. In the beginning, it was just I am, just himself. And then he wanted to experience himself, but objectively. So that's when he created us and put a little barrier in between him and that second I am. And that barrier is the physical universe. Like, what makes me consider myself separate from you? What makes me consider my I am separate from your I am? My physical body, my self-contained image. My little I am is the same as your little I am. We're actually all the same we're the same undifferentiated I am in a differentiated form. So me and you are all the little I ams. We're the little I ams, and all big I am wants to do is wants us to come back. wants us to merge our I am with the original I am. And I like how Jill put it, because we're the reflection of that. It causes us to see it in the opposite. We go, am I? But then the entire name of the game is to merge the little I am back with the big I am, so that we can be one big I am. Right.
You said it great there, and I'm going to bring it back, because this idea of the I am, as the listener, you're listening to this, you are the I am, just as all 5 of us here are I ams, even in different points in time. Even if this was recorded in some point in history in the 21st century, and you're 1,000 years later listening to this podcast, because of course you would be, you're still the same source of I am, just experiencing yourself in this iterative loop. It's almost like an if statement in a Python programming or something like that, where you're iterating over yourself over and over and over. And like Taychilla, what you were talking about like if matter came first, it would dominate. That is what the Urantia book refers to as being bound by the fetters of antecedent causation. Everything that has previously happened as you're born into the world, you don't have any choice as to what country you were born into, what time period you were born into, what race you are, what gender you are. You don't have any control over any of those conditions. That is antecedent causation. It dominates. Once something happens, it's hard to undo it until you gain some leverage. And to build that leverage, we have to live our life. We have to associate with others. Finally, we can grip our hands over the lever of reality and kind of pull it back and bend reality to our will. But we got to work our way up to that point. Now, God, as the initial I am, was bound by the fetters of the absolute. By being everything there is, he didn't have any wiggle room. Imagine being a point of infinite consciousness, just experiencing all potentialities and not being able to do anything. It would be like sitting there in a perpetual DMT trip. It would probably be unbearable. This pressure building and building, God has to release that pressure through creative expression, and that's why he found a clever way to envelop himself in almost like a little Pink Floyd prison, a beam of light shining through and fracturing, dividing into these different rays of differentiation, and then reflecting back towards the source to be perceived. And that's why we have, different individuals, an infinite number of different individuals, all living the same life. So, it is true when you hear philosophers and gurus say that, we are God in a way. I mean, that's what Jesus said the whole time. And it was so controversial in his day. The Sanhedrin and the Pharisees wanted to kill him for it by saying, I am basically God in human form. But I mean, he was right. Is what we all are. But
he just said, I'm the son of the Father.
Yeah, I'm the son of the Father. That's all he said.
Yeah, whatever the Father does,
we're brothers.
Yeah. Well, also, I wouldn't go to say Jesus never said that we should think of ourselves as God. He said God. That the kingdom of heaven is within. So he is referencing that, we have the fragment of the Father that we can synchronize with through our mind. But I think people distort this idea of we are God, because the main problem is no matter how technical your theology gets on associating us with the oneness of God, which yes, we are a part of the oneness of God. The problem is that you don't experience yourself as infinite and omnipresent. You experience yourself as finite. So to call yourself God, you have to, in every moment, experience yourself as infinite and omnipresent. And that's not the case. So what happens is when you call yourself God, all the lower manifestations normally come out of a type of thinking like that. If you try and teach somebody religion by teaching it like that to them, like Melchizedek did not teach the monotheistic God. He didn't come and teach that to people by saying you are God.
You're God.
That's what the finaliters understand through experience. They understand that relationship of how they are with God and how they can't really truly ever be apart from God because God is the only thing that is. But it's like you can't teach it like that. And that's why the highest teachers didn't expound that every day make sure you think that you are God, because there's too many distortions that come from it.
It's not that easy. And that's the good news. We can't just think like that. That's we why would you want to be that? Like the whole game is to have limitations. Like the whole game is to be human. You know? We're not that's the whole part of experience, is we're supposed to experience what it's like to not be God.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why we were created.
Yeah, basically, I mean, that's the mistake of Luciferianism, or unfettered personal liberty, is the mistake of thinking, well, I am God, but did you build your own physical form first? Are you growing your fingernail deliberately? Are you beating your heart? And that is infinite intelligence. It's like we have to start from the bottom, but we have to build our integrity and work our way up and kind of train ourselves. I guess imagine getting like if you were able to lose your.
No, nothing. Keep going. I just want to get back to the reading.
This is powerful, though.
It's powerful stuff.
No, keep going.
I'll start with I am.
Yeah.
It's something we can talk about all day for sure.
Yeah, you're not God. Yeah. Remember that. You're not God.
We are connected.
But you are in a way, but not really.
It's both. We are and we're not. And that's it.
We're the sons of the Father, just how Jesus talked about it. You know? That's it. And just like real sons in real life, like my son, he sees me do something and he wants to do it. You know? So we look at the Father and we want to do it. And the son inherits his father's kingdom. You know, he spoke like that. He didn't speak, you are God. There was a little humility in that. You're a son.
Humility.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So keep going.
All right. If I can even figure out where I was at that point, I believe I'm right here. God the Father.
Creature minds or whatever. As creature minds, maybe.
I might as well start. I think I'd probably stopped halfway through that, so yeah, I'll just start there. As creature minds may view this problem, they are led to the final postulate of the universal I am as the primal cause and the unqualified source of both the Trinity and the Absolute. When, therefore, we crave to entertain a personal concept of the Absolute, we revert to our ideas and ideals of the Paradise Father. When we desire to facilitate comprehension or to augment consciousness of this otherwise impersonal Absolute, we revert to the fact that the Universal Father is the existential Father of absolute personality. The Eternal Son is the absolute person, though not in the experiential sense, the personalization of the Absolute. And then we go on to envisage the experiential trinities as culminating in the experiential personalization, deity absolute, while conceiving the universal absolute as constituting the universe and the extra-universe phenomenon of the manifest presence of the impersonal activities of the unified and coordinated deity associations of supremacy, ultimacy, and infinity, the trinity of trinities. God the Father is discernible on all levels, from the finite to the infinite, and through his creatures from paradise to the evolutionary worlds, have variously and though his creatures from paradise to the evolutionary worlds have variously perceived him, only the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit know him as infinity. Spiritual personality is absolute only on paradise, and the concept of the absolute is unqualified only in infinity. Deity presence is absolute only on paradise, and the revelation of God must always be partial, relative, and progressive until his power becomes experientially infinite in the space potency of the unqualified absolute, while his personality manifestation becomes experientially infinite in the manifest presence of the deity absolute. And while these two potentials of infinity become reality unified in the universal absolute.
That's crazy. So, yeah. So God as an absolute personality that can only be perceived on paradise. if you're in the time-space universe, such as we are now, you will only get a partial, relative, or progressive understanding, comprehension of him. And then that's when the deity absolute comes in. The deity absolute are the deities that are in our time-space universe, but they're from paradise. And through their deity absolute power over control and administration, that's our way of climbing the ladder to get and to finally see that absolute person on paradise, which is interesting. So it's between the interplay of the two potentials of infinity, the deity absolute, which are the time-space creators like Ancient of Days, like those high beings, and then the actual unqualified absolute, the actual material arena itself, I guess you would say, right?
The interaction between the qualified and the unqualified, where this is taking place. And I guess, that's again, that's the fallacy of assuming, you are perfect just how you are, as some teachings to say. Just because you do have deity in you, and you are, in a way, that I am in this experience, there's so much you don't understand, so much we don't understand about everything, so much we are unconsciously being ungrateful for, or like screwing someone over without realizing it, or just not pulling our weight. And so that's why constant humility is required, and constant growth and development is absolutely necessary.
So are they implying that the deity absolute, the time-space deities, such as the Ancient of Days, they have access to control of unqualified absolute energy?
Oh.
Because it's saying it's the interplay between the unqualified absolute and the deity absolute, which creates the universal, the arena.
Yeah.
So unqualified is a raw energy field, and then the deities tap into that, and then they create the universal absolute.
In a way, yeah, because the deity absolute is the personality absolute. So that is the source of mind and consciousness. The unqualified is the source of like inert matter and energy, and the surge of energy that brings everything with it. And as mind, as the deity absolute kind of grips a hold of and attenuates this unqualified absolute, that's where we get this realm that is.
So Michael can tap into pure unqualified absolute.
Yeah, and that is the universal absolute reality, where it all intermingles, that yin yang.
Yeah. So Michael has access to the unqualified absolute. Like he could walk up to like a gas station like we can. Just tap into that shit.
In a way,
the universe.
From my understanding, like degrees of deity have like greater degrees of deity absolute have
more access to the
control over the
unqualified absolute. Okay, that's wild. That's crazy that you can actually tap into the unqualified absolute. Doesn't even make sense. It's wild.
Isn't that the whole 0 point energy kind of thing? Maybe on the deity level, but like Jesus, obviously Jesus and the mother and our local, not Jesus, Michael, he and the mother spirit, they like channel the energy from paradise, I guess, in order to like form our universe. But like there's still, it's interesting. I find it the way it describes the limitations of Michael and the mother spirit. Like the mother spirit is omnipresent in our space sector, but Michael is like limited to one location.
Wherever even though he
has a spirit of truth aspect where he can also use the mother spirit's omnipresent intelligence to like get info from, but he's got to talk to her to get some of that info because he is limited by like an actual form in space. And so he has, if he wants universal intelligence, he has to tap into the circuit. It's not naturally like his knowledge.
So the deities force cooperation amongst other deities. The higher deity force cooperation.
Yeah, and just kind of a final note going off of that, it's interesting how in, the creator son Michael and the universe mother spirit, you see this kind of divine masculine and divine feminine energy of the divine masculine being this like explosive force going out, projecting, trying to build and construct, and the divine feminine being consolidating and unifying and home building almost, and building the home of the entire universe that we live in. It's pretty wild. But beyond sub-infinite levels, the three absolutes are one. And thereby is infinity, deity realized, regardless of whether any other order of existence ever self-realizes consciousness of infinity.
Oh, wow.
Existential status in eternity implies existential self-consciousness of infinity. Even though another eternity may be required to experience self-realization of the experiential potentialities inherent in an infinity eternity and eternal infinity. And God the Father is the personal source of all manifestations of deity and reality to all intelligent creatures and spirit beings throughout all the universe of universes. As personalities, now or in the successive universe experiences of the eternal future, no matter if you achieve the attainment of God the sevenfold, comprehend God the supreme, find God the ultimate, or attempt to grasp the concept of God the absolute, you will discover to your eternal satisfaction that in the consummation of each adventure you have, on new experiential levels, rediscovered the eternal God, the Paradise Father of all universe personality. Universal Father is the explanation of universal unity, as it must be supremely, even ultimately, realized in the post-ultimate unity of absolute values and meanings, unqualified reality. The master force organizers go out into space and mobilize its energies to become gravity responsive to the paradise pool of the Universal Father. And subsequently, there come the creator sons who organize these gravity responding forces into inhabited universes, and therein evolve intelligent creatures who receive unto themselves the spirit of the Paradise Father, and subsequently ascend to the Father to become like him in all possible divinity attributes. The ceaseless and expanding march of the Paradise creative forces through space seems to presage. What's that word? Presage. Seems to presage the ever-extending domain, the gravity grasp of the Universal Father, and the never-ending multiplication of varied types of intelligent creatures who are able to love God and be loved by him, and who, by thus becoming God-knowing, may choose to be like him, may elect to attain paradise and find God. The universe of universes is altogether unified. God is one in power and personality. There is coordination of all levels of energy and all phases of personality, philosophically and experientially, in concept and in reality. All things and beings center in the Paradise Father. God is all and in all, and no things or beings exist without.
As the world settled in life and light, progress from the initial stage to the seventh epoch, they successively grasped for the realization of the reality of God the sevenfold, ranging from the adoration of the Creator Son to the worship of his Paradise Father. Throughout the continuing seventh stage of such a world's history, the ever-progressing mortals grow in the knowledge of God the Supreme, while they vaguely discern the reality of the overshadowing ministry of God the Ultimate. Throughout this glorious age, the chief pursuit of the ever-advancing mortals is the quest for a better understanding and fuller realization of the comprehensible elements of deity, truth, beauty, and goodness. This represents man's effort to discern God in mind, matter, and spirit. And as the mortal pursues this quest, he finds himself increasingly absorbed in the experiential study of philosophy, cosmology, and divinity.
Wait, where are you?
We just started section 10. That was the second paragraph.
Truth, beauty, and goodness.
And that is what we are doing right now. We are absorbed in the experiential study of philosophy, cosmology, and divinity.
It's a quest.
Yeah, it is a quest. It's been quite a journey getting there. Not everyone's at the point where they want to get into this and are inspired by it, and that's okay because that's part of the evolutionary journey. So, philosophy you somewhat grasp, and the divinity you comprehend in worship, social service, and personal spiritual experience. But the pursuit of beauty, cosmology, you all too often limit to the study of man's crude artistic endeavors. Beauty, art, is largely a matter of the unification of contrasts. Variety is essential to the concept of beauty. The supreme beauty, the height of finite art, is the drama of the unification of the vastness of the cosmic extremes of creator and creature. Man finding God and God finding man. The creature becoming perfect as is the creator. That is the supernal achievement of the supremely beautiful, the attainment of the apex of cosmic art.
Wow. There it is, telling you exactly what art should be. That's why all this like dark art, this postmodern art, that's all dystopian and stuff. That's not beautiful. It's not correlating the vast extremes of cosmic nature. Just telling you to be like gross, like
postmodern art.
It's been wallowing in the self-pity and the pitiful aspects of humanity.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not art, but people are like, oh, it's so different. It's so risque. Like, what is it? Abramovich, that chick.
Oh, yeah, that stuff. Yeah. Well,
Spirit Cooking, and she's like the creative director of all those Hollywood satanic music videos with like babies chopped up and stuff.
Oh, it's insane. And
that's supposed to be hot right now. Like, fucking weird.
Yeah, to focus, it really is the apex of ugliness. I mean, I saw the decline of one of the coolest music venues ever, Rhinoceropolis, when the culture there became too fixated on like postmodern art, making noise music and avant-garde, like oh, I only listen to noise, you wouldn't understand. And you get this pretentious intellectualness about it, but it's like, no, you really wouldn't understand because you're literally just making noise, and anyone can do it. You don't have to act like all conceited that like you're the special one that can make noise, but there's something beautiful to be said about like skill, like people harnessing skill, working together and cooperating and collaborating. And that is the apex of beauty. That's everything we find beautiful.
Harmony.
And I was away when you started this chapter, but I don't know if you guys brought it up again. I keep bringing it up every video until you, the viewers, recognize it. Triosophy. That's what they're talking about. Triosophy. Yeah. Thinking of the universe through a tripartite lens. Thinking in threes. Truth, beauty, goodness, mind, body, spirit. How these three aspects of the Trinity are interrelated in all aspects of the world and life.
Yeah, I think that was right when you came up. Was this sentence? This represents man's effort to discern God in mind, matter, and spirit. And as the mortal pursues this quest, he finds himself increasingly absorbed in the experiential study of philosophy, cosmology, and divinity. This is one of those parts. This last part of this section, I could just listen to over and over.
Yeah, dude. Philosophy would be the mind. Cosmology would be the physical aspect, the body, and divinity would be the relationship between the two.
Yeah, the last line is my favorite. Let's keep going.
Let's do it.
All right. Hence, materialism, atheism, is the maximization of ugliness, the climax of the finite antithesis of the beautiful. Highest beauty consists in the panorama of the unification of the variations which have been born of pre-existent harmonious reality. The attainment of cosmological levels of thought includes 1. Curiosity, hunger for harmony and thirst for beauty, persistent attempts to discover new levels of harmonious cosmic relationships. 2. Aesthetic appreciation, love of the beautiful and ever-advancing appreciation of the artistic touch of all creative manifestations on all levels of reality. Number 3, ethic sensitivity. Through the realization of truth and the appreciation of beauty leads to the sense of the eternal fitness of those things which impinge upon the recognition of divine goodness in deity relations with all beings. And thus even cosmology leads to the pursuit of divine reality values, to God consciousness.
I mean, that's easy. Just be curious. Be curious, be hunger, thirst for knowledge, Don't. I encounter so many people when you talk about stuff, they're like, man, whatever. Man, I don't need to think about all that. Man, I'll leave you to think about that. I don't need to think about all that. I got bills to pay. I got shit. I got
things to do, man. Don't you understand?
Like, get out of here with that ugliness. You're a distorted pattern of the cosmic reality. Don't be that. That's all you got to be is curious. Then you have to have aesthetic appreciation. Make things look nice. Make things look cool. Don't make them all just flat lines and boxes that fit neatly into each other. That's ugly. And then be ethically sensitive, use both of those 1 and 2 to help other people do the same. That's it. That's all we got to do.
That definition of curiosity is really cool. And I love how it describes that when you have curiosity and aesthetic appreciation, that leads to a sense of the eternal fitness of those things which impinge upon the recognition of divine goodness and all that. But I love that, the idea of eternal fitness. That's mind, body, spirit fitness right there.
Yep, exactly. Yep, eternal fitness. Fuck yeah. All right.
Yea, the world settled in light and life are so fully concerned with the comprehension of truth, beauty, and goodness, because these quality values embrace the revelation of deity to the realms of time and space. The meanings of eternal truth make a combined appeal to the intellectual and spiritual natures of mortal man. Universal beauty embraces the harmonious relations and rhythms of the cosmic creation. This is more distinctly the intellectual appeal and leads towards unified and synchronous comprehension of the material universe. Divine goodness represents the revelation of infinite values to the finite mind, therein to be perceived and elevated to the very threshold of the spiritual level of human comprehension. Truth.
Damn. Fuck yeah, that's awesome. I just like that first sentence out, that pictures in your mind, my mental picture. The world settled in light and life was so fully concerned with the comprehension of truth, beauty, and goodness. Like, imagine being transported to those worlds. That's us right here on Earth, dude. We have to be fully infatuated with this shit.
Yeah, that's the difference between this world and like a true like cosmic utopia on a planet. Is all the individuals, all the civilians are fully concerned with the comprehension, truth, beauty, and goodness. And like,
they're all living triosophy, baby.
Yeah, it's a lifelong pursuit. You can always be getting a greater grasp of those things.
Hey man, you don't have to travel to a different planet. If you're listening to this, watching this video, you ain't got to travel to a different planet. You can just join the legacy and we can create that shit right here.
We'll build it right here.
Truth is the basis of science and philosophy, presenting the intellectual foundation of religion. Beauty sponsors art, music, and the meaningful rhythms of all human experience. Goodness embraces the sense of ethics, morality, and religion, experiential perfection hunger. The existence of beauty implies the presence of appreciative creature mind, just as certainly as the fact of progressive evolution indicates the dominance of the supreme mind. Beauty is the intellectual recognition of the harmonious time-space synthesis of the far-flung diversification of phenomenal reality, all of which stems from pre-existence and eternal oneness.
Damn. Dude, these are the highest definitions of beauty I've ever seen in my life.
Seriously. I just got to say that, I mean, there's a lot to unpack even there. Each paragraph is loaded, but the first of all, I love how they define religion as experiential perfection hunger. That's pretty cool. But also, the existence of beauty implies the presence of appreciative creature mind, just as certainly as the fact of progressive evolution indicates the dominance of the supreme mind. That implies that the supreme being is self-evident because civilization has advanced from, primitive like hunter-gatherers or from apes in the woods. I mean, like, as much as our civilization and the Western consumerist world is very imperfect, it is still a rung on the ladder, and it's a stage higher, and it shows that is self-evident of the supreme being and the coordination of all of us, like growing towards something. There's something there. It's not accidental that we keep on accelerating.
Yeah, we could use a little bit more beauty injections, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Not booty injections. That's all I said. Said beauty
injections.
Maybe booty injections too.
It ain't your booty. It's your beauty.
Booty and goodness.
Truth, booty, and goodness. Yeah, you can buy that shirt coming soon. Legacy store near you.
Oh man.
Goodness is the mental recognition of the relative values of the diverse levels of divine perfection. The recognition of goodness implies a mind of moral status, a personal mind with ability to discriminate between good and evil. But the possession of goodness, greatness, is the measure of real divinity attainment.
That's fuck yeah.
Yeah. That is power personality synthesis. The attainment, the measure of the possession of goodness, greatness.
The recognition of true relations implies a mind competent to discriminate between truth and error. The bestowal spirit of truth, which investigates the human minds of Urantia, is unerringly responsive to truth, the living spirit relationship of all things and all beings as they are coordinated in the eternal ascent Godward. Every impulse of every electron, thought, or spirit is an acting unit in the whole universe. Only sin is isolated and evil gravity resisting on the mental and spiritual levels. The universe is a whole. No thing or being exists or lives in isolation. Self-realization is potentially evil if it is antisocial. It is literally true no man lives by himself. Cosmic socialization constitutes the highest form of personality unification. Said Jesus, "He who would be the greatest among you, let him become server of all."
There you go.
Even truth, beauty, and goodness, man's intellectual approach to the universe of mind, matter, and spirit, must be combined into one unified concept of a divine and supreme ideal. As mortal personality unifies the human experience with matter, mind, and spirit, so does this divine and supreme ideal become power unified in supremacy and then personalized as a God of fatherly love. All insights into the relations of the parts to any given whole requires an understanding grasp of the relation of all parts to that whole. And in the universe, this means the relation of created parts to the creative whole. Deity thus becomes the transcendental, even the infinite goal of the universal and eternal attainment.
There you go,
Hey, see, Magma. That's where my mind was pulling from. I knew there was some reference to the part in the hole at the end of this show.
Yeah,
so I wasn't going crazy.
No, you weren't going crazy. That's there and there. I was looking for the section called the part in the hole, but it's right here. And I realized when I was listening to the paper, I'm like, oh, it is in there.
Yeah.
Man, every impulse of every electron, thought, or spirit is an acting unit in the whole universe. That is so dang cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the universe as a whole. No thing or being exists or lives in isolation. What one being does affects another being on the other side of the universe, no matter what. Changing the position of an electron down here affects the rest of the thing out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love how they say evil is gravity resisting. It's not saying evil is the secret to anti-gravity. It's saying that evil is resistant to paradise gravity. The true source of gravity is everything gravitates towards paradise patterns to the source. Even this material rock we're on is like resonating like a bell, and matter kind of coalesces to it as that inert matter is responding to paradise patterns. But as we respond to paradise patterns, we shift around and we start growing and building things up. And that is evil is unreal. It's resistant to that gravity. So you start to unravel reality by your very presence. But that is where was it what you just read?
The universe as a whole. That part.
Yeah.
56:10:14.
There we go. The even truth, beauty, and goodness, man's intellectual approach to the universe of mind, matter, and spirit must be combined into one unified concept of a divine and supreme ideal. As mortal personality unifies the human experience with matter, mind, and spirit, so does this divine and supreme ideal become power unified in supremacy and then personalized as a God of fatherly love. It talks about power personality synthesis right there when it says it becomes power unified. And that is the crux of like why we need to understand all these complex definitions and all of this, working our way up to an understanding of the supreme being and how that kind of abstract concept directly applies to our lives, what we're doing right here, right now.
Yeah, and when you start ascending the channels of mind, body, and spirit, you start synthesizing your personality. That's you responding to paradise patterns. So you get sucked into that gravity stream back to the Father. Gravity. Walk around a little bit more confident, a little bit with your chest out, not as scared, willing to go achieve as opposed to being timid. If you start practicing evil, negative aspects, manipulating people, like you were referring to, it becomes not anti-gravitic. You become
resistant
to gravity. Exactly. So you start resisting that paradise pool, and you don't want to be on that wavelength. But fuck this and go.
It's cool to think that paradise has the ultimate filter, and it's gravity. It's like the ultimate filter of progression is just
spiritual gravity. You can't get past that barrier of spiritual gravity, because at the end of the day, the universe really started with these mental meanings and concepts, and then the energy proceeded out to express what those concepts were. And so no matter how far you can throw your body to another planet, you can never throw yourself into the Isle of Paradise and get past that spiritual gravity. And that's an interesting.
You need to qualify. You need to do the right movements in time and space.
And that's
the Macarena.
Thought forms, the experiential thought forms of time, space.
Okay, so I need to think about the Macarena, is what you're saying. Okay.
You gotta do the
Macarena.
Macarena.
Not just think about. It's like when we think about things, we're like,
kidding.
No, I'm using it as an opportunity to segue into a bit. But like, people think the word love, and then of course they think about the interactions that they were taught about what is love, and then they think about their expressions of love, how they've interacted with other people, who they love the most, who they love the least. And that's like, even that right there, who you love the least, that's not a real definition of love, because God's definition of love doesn't include I love this person less than the other person.
And they actually give you the definition for love in the very last line of this section.
Amen.
We're gonna get to it.
Gonna get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, like already in our concept of love, we're actually resisting parts of spiritual gravity, because we don't entirely know that our definition is distorted.
Mm-hmm.
But so when we say, think of love, it's like, no, we actually have to experience the reaction of love. What is the best way to react to the concept of love? And you actually do figure that out through socializing with in the social environment, because you'll find out eventually that love does not include I love you less than the other person. You'll find that out in experience. And it takes a certain amount of experiential socializations and like turmoil to actually get to the piece of like figuring out how to love people equally. And I'm not saying that because I'm the master of that. I'm just saying that I've heard a lot of these concepts. I've started incorporating them, and I'm like, I do actually see that our definition of preferential love, it creates problems. And like, you could be friends with anyone. It doesn't mean you have to like spend all your time with everyone, but like the capability to interact and have a meaningful impact and conversation with anyone on whatever level they're willing to engage.
Amen.
That's an example of unpreferential love, because a preferential love will make you be like, circumstances make you in a situation with people that maybe aren't interested in the same subjects as you are. And so your preferential love definition might cause you to retract and like not interact and really not really be fully there and like willing and trying to get to some sort of inspiration, mutual inspiration in the group. But like, throw away that definition that causes you to hold yourself back, and now you're trying to synthesize the limited environment. You're like, oh shoot, this is definitely not who I'm used to being around and hanging around. Their concepts are certainly different than what I'm used to thinking about, but getting on that curiosity factor of synthesizing the social environment.
Can I correlate all these divergent data points, even though it's hard for me and it makes me feel kind of weird? Can I still do it? Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, unconditional love, conditional love, don't be a weirdo. That's a good way to put it. I like how you said that. That even though we have like concepts like love in society, they are for the most part distortions, and we've been conditioned to accept them. So
yeah, we heard
on
it.
Yeah, reflect on it. Yeah, you can push it up. But yeah, keep going. Let's fucking get through this shit.
Let's smash this out and save all our thoughts for the end of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Universal beauty is the recognition of the reflection of the Isle of Paradise in the material creation, while eternal truth is the special ministry of the Paradise Sons, who not only bestow themselves upon the mortal races, but even pour out their spirit of truth upon all peoples. Divine goodness is more fully shown forth in the loving ministry of the manifold personalities of the infinite spirit. But love, the sum total of these three qualities, is man's perception of God as his spirit father. Physical matter in the time-space shadow of the paradise energy shining of the absolute deities. Truth meanings are the mortal intellect repercussions of the eternal word of deity, the time-space comprehension of supreme concepts. The goodness values of divinity are the merciful ministries of the spirit personalities of the universal, the eternal, and the infinite to the time-space finite creatures of the evolutionary spheres. These meaningful reality values of divinity are blended in the Father's relation with each personal creature as divine love. They are coordinated in the Son and his sons as divine mercy. They manifest their qualities through the Spirit and his spirit children as divine ministry, the portrayal of loving mercy to the children of time. These three divinities are primarily manifested by the Supreme Being as power personality synthesis. They are variously shown forth by God the sevenfold in 7 differing associations of divine meanings and values on 7 ascending levels. To finite man, truth, beauty, and goodness embrace the full revelation of divine reality. All this love comprehension of deity finds spiritual expression in the lives of God-knowing mortals. There are yielded the fruits of divinity: intellectual peace, social progress, moral satisfaction, spiritual joy, and cosmic wisdom.
Yeah.
The advancing mortals on our world in the 7th stage of light and life have learned that love is the greatest thing in the universe, and they know that God is love. Love is the desire to do good to others.
Boom. Mic drop. Paragraph break by itself. One little sentence. Love is the desire to do good to others.
They really emphasize that. That is the end of part 3. That's what they end with, is that one sentence.
That one sentence at the very end. That's the stamp. That is the mic drop. See, nobody knows how to define love. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Love is the desire to do good to others. It's very simple. It's not like, love, you need to hold my hand while I walk down the street. You need to open the door for me. If you don't buy me a $100 drink when we're out and $1 million steak, you're not in love with me. Like, fuck that.
We don't get to decide what love is. Love isn't a feeling. I heard it put really well by, I think it was Rosicrucians. They said, God is love, but love can be interchangeable with a almost more accurate word, which is care. God is care, and love is care. It's unconditional love. Sometimes, you can be really pissed off by your kids or your wife or your family or your grandparents or whatever. The people you really love, you may not feel that really good feeling sensation, but you still feel like a duty to them, and you care about them, and you feel responsible for them. And so love on the greatest sense is we feel responsible for each other. We're actually willing to go the extra mile for each other because we care about each other.
Yeah, and they're saying that love is a synthesis of truth, beauty, and goodness synthesized together and reflected back on our fellows. Like the highest way to love somebody is to want them to hit their potential mentally, physically, and spiritually, and to help them get there. If I can do that to you, well, you can do that to me. And if we can all do that together, that is the kingdom of heaven Jesus is talking about. It's very simple. Love one another. What are the first 2 commandments? Remember with the Pharisees pinned Jesus, like he was in the middle of a court? What's the most important of all 10 commandments? Because there are no 10 commandments. There's only one: love God the Father with all your heart, strength, soul, and mind. your mind, body, and spirit. And number 2, love your neighbor as yours. That's it. So seek God with all your mind, body, spirit, and then help your neighbor hit their potential too, and their mind, body, spirit. And everybody do it together. It's really simple. Love is the desire to do good to others. Amen.
Amen.
That's the end of that. I do want to quickly read this. It says, presented by a mighty messenger visiting on Urantia by request of the Nebadon Revelatory Corps and in collaboration with a certain Melchizedek, the vicegerent planetary prince of Urantia. You know that certain Melchizedek is Macaventa Melchizedek, the guy who taught Abraham.
Vicegerent cool. Planetary prince of Urantia.
Yeah. And so a mighty messenger is an evolutionary mortal that has reached finality stage. Once you go into the core finality, you can become a mighty messenger. So a mighty messenger visited our planet on the request. And while he was visiting, the Nebadon Revelatory Corps was like, hey, you want to work with Macaventa and make this paper? He's like, fuck it. Got 2 days. I got you. No, got 3 days. So this is the end of part 2, right? Yeah, the end of part 2. The Urantia book is 4 sections. Part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. This is the end of part 2, and it says right here, this paper on universal unity is the 25th of a series of presentations by various authors, having been sponsored as a group by a commission of Nebadon personalities numbering 12, and acting under the direction of Tusha Melchizedek. We indicted these narratives and put them in the English language by a technique authorized by our superiors in the year 1934 of Urantia time. So this paper was given to us in 1934 by Tusha. You don't hear that word anywhere else in the Urantia book, Tusha Melchizedek.
So he was, I guess, the director of all these other personalities writing these different papers and kind of orchestrating the project.
Orchestrating part 2.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I guess that's the 12 Melchizedek's
receivers. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, Melchizedek receivers. They were the same with Macaventa. Like once his mission was done, he was like, "All right, beam me up."
Yeah, beam me up. Okay, I guess Tusha might have been one of those 12 Melchizedeks.
Possibly.
They don't give the names except the other ones, except for Macaventa. But yeah, he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." So good shit right here.
There we go.
Truth, beauty, and goodness. Triosophy. Remember, when you are done listening to this video, or if you press pause, or if you're just waking up today and you remember listening to, what these guys were talking about was cool yesterday. When you wake up in the morning, remember, think in 3s: mind, body, spirit, thing, meaning, value, fact, idea, relationship, or seek truth, beauty, and goodness. And just do that constantly. Look at everything through those lenses. Figure out and organize your routine based on those 3 principles and pillars. And you will see a change in your life. You'll see some type of progress.
And you can do that using curiosity, aesthetic appreciation, and ethic sensitivity.
Amen.
What we learned today.
So we cranked that out. Another episode of the Forbidden Scrolls, paper 56, Universal Unity from the Urantia book. If you've gotten through all this and you're digging it, leave a comment. If you think we're crazy, leave 5 comments. Don't forget to press the subscribe button if you want the notifications. I guess you can press that little bell. You want to stay with your finger on the pulse to cosmic truth, right? I mean, at least I do. We're going to have more stuff coming to you guys soon. We're going to start, showing the fruits of our organization, do it in a bunch of different ways. So stay tuned. We'll have, building circuitry and stuff with Magnusloth, a bunch of different, like building computer chips, that kind of stuff. Anything else? You guys want to say anything? Any plugs?
I just wanted to say next time, like next Sunday, we could probably honestly digest what we just read and kind of bring some related content. If each of us bring like a paragraph, even from another book or something like that. Because I would like to read that one little related section from, I want to say it was paper 3 or something, that was Part in the Whole. Then I have another Part in the Whole from the CIA document analysis of the gateway process. They have a Part in the Whole, which is perfectly related to this. And then anything similar that you guys want to bring, we could honestly probably pump out a quick little episode just on that.
Yeah, you heard him. If you guys have any ideas too, join the Discord, shoot it out, and we will analyze it through our mental lenses. Open to suggestions. Let us know. And until next time, follow Gary Lee Haskins on YouTube. All right. See you later.
Peace.
In the minds of the mortals of Urantia, that being the name of your world, there exists great confusion respecting the meaning of such terms as God, divinity, and deity. Human beings are still more confused and uncertain about the relationships of the divine personalities designated by these numerous appellations. Because of this conceptual poverty associated with so much ideational confusion, Deadrick Baker and the Legacy Foundation for Human Progress has been tasked with disseminating trisophic truths. Please do enjoy, like, and subscribe for more.